I am not saying that Trump is a fascist dictator. I'm just comparing fascist tendencies with actions that Trump took. And the fact is that Trump has not turned the military against US citizens. So take this video with a grain of salt. I think that it is important for all citizens to have respect for democratic procedures and be willing to accept their consequences. If you want to make a change, follow the correct path. This is what I'm trying to do with this YouTube video. I want to promote some critical thinking and to encourage dialogue while trying to be entertaining. Please do not watch this video if you're easily triggered. If someone says that he would like to be a dictator for only one day, probably agrees with some fascist ideology.
Donald Trump really said it. He'll be a dictator for a day if reelected.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, no, no, other than day one."
Trump.
If someone does not respect democratic procedures and is trying to hold on political power by leading an insurrection, then he shows some kind of contempt for democratic values.
Personal notes of then Vice President Mike Pence, who wrote 5 pages detailing an Oval Office meeting where Trump was pressuring Pence to take action just 2 days before January 6th. Those notes allege that Trump told Pence things like, quote, "When there's fraud, the rules get changed," end quote. Quote, "You can be bold," end quote. And that Pence had, quote, "the right to do whatever you want to do," end quote. But the vice president rejected those plans and 2 days later oversaw the joint session of Congress to certify the election for Joe Biden, telling Trump that his plans in a phone call that morning. While Pence was on Capitol Hill to do this, Trump was at the Ellipse outside the White House, launching what the special counsel calls, quote, "an indirect threat," end quote, against his vice president during a speech to his supporters.
Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now. I'm not hearing good stories.
After Trump's speech ended, chaos took over Capitol Hill as Trump supporters stormed the building in what the special counsel called one last effort to delay the vote certification. Back at the White House, the special counsel says Trump watched everything unfold in the Oval Office.
Yes. Okay.
Special counsel says Trump watched everything unfold in the Oval Office dining room. And while there by himself, sent a tweet which helped to fuel the riots. It was read in almost real time by a rioter with a bullhorn. Watch.
Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. demands the truth.
1 minute after that tweet was sent, Mike Pence, see him there, was evacuated to a secure location. When told that his vice president was in danger when he was sitting in the Oval Office dining room, Trump allegedly said back, quote, "So what?"
The inability to accept defeat after the elections and proclaiming defeats as victories is an attribute of a fascist dictator.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
Concede the results of elections.
Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about.
Um, if the president has absolute immunity to criminal prosecution, then he could act more easily as a fascist.
The Supreme Court delivered a heavy blow to special counsel Jack Smith's election interference case against former President Donald Trump, ruling along partisan lines that Trump has broad immunity for acts taken while he was in office.
This will be referred to from now on as a landmark opinion of the Supreme Court. It's not only important for President Trump's criminal case, they really have set a framework for all future presidents.
In August 2023, a federal grand jury indicted Trump in an unprecedented criminal case, charging the former president with 4 crimes related to his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election.
Donald Trump's defense team puts forward this argument that a former president should be held completely immune from prosecution for any of the acts that they performed while in office.
I feel that as a president, you have to have immunity. Very simple.
After a lower court rejected Trump's immunity claims, the former president appealed, and on July 1st, the Supreme Court gave him a sweeping amount of protection against criminal prosecution.
The court's very explicit about this. It lays out its framework by saying, quote, "The nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority." What the court is saying in this part is quite surprising. They're basically saying that nothing he does in terms of pressuring the Justice Department to investigate whoever he wants to investigate as president can ever be subject to criminal liability.
The High Court's opinion also says that Trump is entitled at a minimum to presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. However, a court could determine that some conduct, such as a campaign speech or fundraising, constitutes an unofficial act.
The Supreme Court says, quote, "The president enjoys no immunity for his unofficial acts, and not everything the president does is official," end quote. So a big question here is, when was President Trump acting in his official capacity as President of the United States versus when was he acting as candidate for re-election?
We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
When President Trump gives his
if someone wants the military to attack political enemies or protesters that have a different ideology, then he's probably a fascist.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
Fueling resentment and promoting violence against specific groups of people is also an attribute of a fascist dictator.
President Trump accused his political opponents of going after him and his supporters yesterday in a fundraising email and said, quote, "Haul out the guillotine," a reference to the French Revolution where the masses famously rose up in support of rich people like him.
If someone says that he needs the kind of generals that Hitler had, probably wants the kind of generals that Hitler had.
Fit for office.
And the retired generals who served in his administration.
What a stupid group of people they were. Mattis, Milley.
An article published by The Atlantic yesterday claimed that during a private conversation while in office, Trump said, quote, "I need the kind of generals Hitler had, people who were totally loyal to him," which the Trump campaign has denied.
They denied that, though. The campaign denied that. The people behind the campaign denied that. If it walks like a duck, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, maybe it is a duck. Now, there is hope that he lied, as politicians do, or maybe we are unlucky and we are facing for the first time a politician who is speaking the complete and utter truth. All of you who want to stay away from politics and do your own thing, keep in mind that there is a difference between an authoritarian ideology that wants passive subjects and a fascist ideology that needs active followers. From what I've seen, Trump has a passionate cult club that follows his orders. One example is the attack on the in the Capitol on January the 6th. For example, so be prepared to be called to action. This video was a bit too aggressive. I could make it lighter, but by not making the direct comparison with Trump, but then my claims would not have been relevant. What criteria do you use to spot a dictator? Click like if you liked the video and subscribe if you want more of this.